or Keith could have brought me a cup of tea or something. It's quite a big deal to discover at the age of 53 that you're adopted. But that's the joke, obviously. I've never not known that I am adopted. 11:49 is the time. Alex Taylor-Brown is on the line. What's the story, Alex, and what have you found out?
Yeah, James, this is looking at, as you mentioned, the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund. And what that is a pot of money that's available to families with adopted children to access trauma support. That could be therapy, it could be assessments specific to that child's needs. That money has consisted of £5,000 a year for the support, plus a £2,500 payment for specialist assessments. And over Easter, it was announced by the government that this fund is to be reduced to just a single £3,000 payment annually. So that is a 60% cut to what it previously was. So understandably, families involved are concerned. Helen is from Lancashire. She's a mum to 2 adopted children. She told me that they have had to rely on this funding in the past.
We've used the fund as a family on different occasions to be able to secure funding for interventions that my children and us as a family have needed. The chance that was suddenly going to disappear was very frightening.
So the argument from the government is that, data from earlier this year showed almost half of the applications for the therapy through this fund exceeded this £3,000 limit, so only half actually exceeded it. Charities are warning that thousands of children, though, could go without that specific therapy they need. And again, hearing from Helen that she worries what that could mean for the future.
Certainly for my family, I know in times of crisis that being able to access something through the fund has made the difference between us being able to continue as a family and seriously consider the possibility that we couldn't. I think there's worries that adopters may not be as likely to come forward to adopt children because they may understand that the support that previously was there isn't there any longer.
It's sort of sad to hear that situation as well, James, that there are families there, and I spoke to an MP here in Yorkshire as well who said that he'd heard similar, that families are actually considering whether they can continue to be a family or not without this fund. It was only revealed on April the 14th, but by that time, lots of councils and regional adoption agencies had already applied for the money that they usually do, under the assumption it would be the money that's previously been available. One of the charities we have spoken to on this is Adoption Matters. David Robinson Field is a service manager there. He's actually an adoptive parent himself as well. And he's been explaining why this fund is so important to families.
80% of adopted children have had quite severe backgrounds of kind of neglect, trauma, abuse. So there's a real need for support. There's lots of issues around kind of self-harming, violence towards parents, things like that. So all those things are escalating.
Now, this fund will continue, James, into 2027, but it still sort of leaves families in a kind of limbo. The government saying that the decisions they've taken will ensure the fund is financially sustainable and that they will provide an update on the future of the fund in due course.
I think the MP, or certainly one of the MPs who's moved a lot in this field, is the Liberal Democrat Tom Gordon, and not getting the answers that these families need. I wonder whether part of the problem here is linked to a misconception about what adoption is, because people think of people like me adopted as a tiny baby into a family, in 1972, whereas adoption today is a very different prospect. You're often dealing with very troubled children who've had really tough early years and who are carrying the burdens of that. When you talked about, or when David Robinson Field there talked about self-harm and violence towards parents, these are, not rare. They are quite common responses to things like abandonment issues and trauma, and even PTSD or experiences in the womb for some of these children. They are carrying a lot of scars, and that is why this help is so important. But we don't know what the government's rationale is, I don't think, Alex, for this move, beyond saving a few quid, they hope.
Yeah, and as we heard from David Robinson Field there as well, they kind of, in a way, accept that the government needs to find money to fill what we hear time and time again, this £22 billion black hole, but it still doesn't sting any less. And you mentioned there about adoption and you know what's sort of gone before. Many of these children spend around about at least 18 months within the care system as well, you know, which as a kid, you know, over a year, it sounds like such a long time, doesn't it? So, you know, for them to sort of go through that and for this trauma support to be cut as well, it is concerning for families. And we heard from Helen there as well, who said, you know, she loves it. She loves being an adoptive mum, but it is a different type of parenting, and it can be hard, and it can bring lots of different challenges. It's no less rewarding, but it can be complicated at times.
And very different from my own mum's experience sort of 50 years ago. Alex, it's a lovely piece of work. You can read the article on the LBC app. Alex Taylor-Brown there, LBC's Yorkshire correspondent, responding to a development that he first heard of while listening to Sheila Fogarty's show